G'day you lot, it's the Storyteller. Today we are going to be doing a video essay. Yes, I know I said I'd never do anything like this again since the Coca-Cola channel theory video, but here I am, your unreliable narrator. Your unregularly scheduled programming should continue after this video, hopefully. Don't quote me on that. We're gonna go over a topic that's very special to me, and walked so a lot of people's projects could run. Welcome to my Roman Empire, otherwise known as the Purple Corruption series. The Purple Corruption series, which was a gacha series created by Ender Shanna, formerly known as SCP Gachatuber cult Shanna, around 3 years ago, and it became the foundation for a closer SCP Gachatuber community and helped us find a lot of each other's channels. It was a special era in our tiny little corner of YouTube. And as I've been watching a lot of people from that time growing up, finishing with YouTube, or moving on to different content, I realise it's getting lost to time. All things eventually get forgotten, but I don't want the impact of this tiny amateur series to wash away just yet. A new group of SCP Gachatubers are joining the scene. And as an elderly one, who is still running their channel with some SCP Gacha content, I wanted to be able to pass on the history before I inevitably kick the bucket and move on to greener pastures. I think we can all learn something from this small point in history, and even if we can't, I still think it's a fun ride. The SCP Gachatuber cult Shanna channel was created on May the 11th, 2021, and uploaded its first video on the 17th of the same month. On the 19th, she uploaded the video called Join the SCP Gachatuber Cult, and that is where everything started. That is also where I first came across her. The video was simple, asking SCP Gachatubers if they wanted to join the cult and to send in their codes. Several other SCP Gachatubers turned in their OC codes at this time as well, and some joined later. She then began uploading frequently with a combination of SCP content and SCP Gachatuber content, using SCP Gachatubers as characters. The start of a historic series begins on the 26th of May with an upload titled Purple Corruption Trailer. It does what it says on the box, though interestingly ends up being quite different from the finished project. On the same day, the first episode of the series, entitled The Start of the Purple Corruption, was uploaded. The first season continued with 7 episodes, finishing on June 18th with The Purple Corruption Part 7, the finale. By this point, lots of SCP Gachatubers had been involved, and SCP Gachatubers cult Shanna was steadily rising in subscriber count. On the 25th of the same month, the first episode of Season 2 was released, and there was a noticeable jump in quality, as well as clear inspiration from a Minecraft animated series by Rainimator. Season 3 came soon after, featuring 10 episodes, the most so far, as well as yet another jump in quality. The season was actually finished by a Gachatuber going by the name of Gabriel's Adventure, who created a fan ending episode which was accepted as canon by the creator. After this, uploads were sporadic, and SCP Gachatuber's cult Shanna eventually left the channel dormant. She made a video on October 28th, 2023, with a rebrand, rename Ender Shanna, and an announcement that she was also planning to return to making content. However, things didn't seem to work out and her channel remained silent. That was until late last year. On the 24th of October, 2024, 4 days from being a full year since she last uploaded, Ender Shanna uploaded a trailer for Season 4 of The Purple Corruption. I was really excited, and sure enough, soon after, she uploaded the first episode of the season. I won't be covering any of Season 4 in my video, apart from series supplements, due to the fact that it is incomplete. If you guys enjoy this video, I may make a follow-up when the season finishes. This series, and channel by extension, had a really big impact on a lot of people. It brought a lot of SCP Gachatubers together, let us find each other's channels, and a few friendships and working relationships were developed because of that. I, for one, was able to work on a few collaborations with others that I met, and as I was able to subscribe to so many hard-working content creators in this space that I didn't even know about prior. It also inspired multiple projects from multiple people, and even created its own mini-genre. Stories told using SCP Gachatubers as characters. I like to call this genre the SGC effect, and I've gotten away with it so far, so I'm going to continue. This series impacted me personally, and I will forever be its #1 stan. I might be a bit biased, as the character based on me is a secondary main character, and I have an ego the size of the sun. Would I have followed this series as close as I have if I wasn't a larger part of the story? Probably not. But would it have still had the same effect on the SCP Gachatuber community at the time? Definitely. This series means so much to me. Something I enjoyed watching as it came out, and something I still enjoy rewatching right now for a good laugh. This series made me realise that I'd made it. I'd become a bona fide SCP Gachatuber, and could stand in the halls of the greats at the time. It made me realise that I had fans, like actual fans, people who enjoyed watching my content, but also enjoyed watching fan content featuring me. It was very awe-inspiring. And Shanna, if you are watching this, and I hope you are, this video is not intended in any way to make fun of you or your work. I love your work, flaws and all, and I hope you can see what this video truly is. A love letter to the purple corruption. This video will include criticism and my opinions of the story, and it is not intended to be mean-spirited. I can't share my love with others without bringing up all aspects of it. So if you aren't in the headspace to hear criticism right now, you can stop watching here or skip to this timestamp to head straight to the theories and headcanons section. Before we hop into the meat of the video, I want to emphasise how much this series means to me, and I highly encourage you to go check out the series before watching this video. Maybe bring a snack or a friend, or both, to enjoy it with. The series in its entirety is almost impossible to summarise concisely, as plotlines love to come out of nowhere, but I'll do my best. Before I dive into the story of the Purple Corruption, season by season, I want to give a brief overview of all the characters featured. Most of you watching won't know who all these Gachatubers are, especially because the majority of them have left, changed their name, or moved on to other content. Meet the cast of the Purple Corruption! Here we have the main character, Bunny IO_YT, referred to as Bunny throughout the series. I wonder who this strapping young person is. Very nice fashion taste, and what a dapper hairstyle. This is San Creates, referred to as San. Yes, I did check the pronunciation with them. Eris Skylar, an OG called Eris in the series. I keep mispronouncing it as Alaris, so feel free to call me out on it if I slip up. Lovely Love, or Lovely, with funky spelling, that still confuses me. CandyNat2701, coming in with a nice hair, we'll just call them CandyNat. Fandom Madness. I don't think the series ever mentions their name, but let's go with Fandom. This is Kamala Gaming Teams, or Kamala. Gabriel's Adventure. Another titan of the SCP Gachatuber sphere at the time. SCP-XXX-J, quite an important character in the first season. Let's call them -J. Dreamer Melody, yet another heavy hitter. Melody should suffice. And a Shanna, a mysterious figure within the story indeed. Let's go with Shanna for them. This is a graveyard dedicated to those we lost along the way and those who moved on to greener pastures. The ones I couldn't find. Bunny_IO_YT. From what I remember, this guy left YouTube entirely due to personal reasons about halfway through the series, but I couldn't find any evidence of his channel. Only what could have been an alt he forgot to delete. What ultimately became of him is a mystery. Presumed dead. The ones who left. Kamala Gaming Teams hasn't uploaded in 3 years. Eris Skylar hasn't uploaded in around 10 months. SCP XXX-J Plays, now creator XXX-J, hasn't uploaded in 2 years. Your local Peanut, who you might have noticed I forgot to get a picture of and forgot to introduce them, but they're orange. You'll know who they are in this series. They're orange. They announced they were quitting and haven't uploaded for 3 years. The ones who moved on. Formerly Fandom Madness, now changed to Big L Gaming Scrapyard, uses their channel as a dumping ground for works in progress and run a channel called Big L Gaming. San Creates. Moved on from Gacha and now focuses on creating animation content for other fandoms. Lovely Love. Recently started uploading after a hiatus with a focus on animation. Carolyn. Still uploading every few months, mostly focused on Gacha fan content of murder drones and a Roblox game called Dummies vs Noobs. And now, it's the time you've been waiting for! The series story. Before I start, I just want to say this is direct spoilers for the Purple Corruption. This is all the spoilers. This is going over the series season by season, hitting all the story beats. This is the definition of spoilers. Alright? Alrighty. Melanie and Dash J are having a chat, before a bottle of Purple Murple appears in Dash J's hand. They say it doesn't look good, but still decide the best idea to find out what it is to drink it. Apparently it's delicious. That doesn't really matter much, however, as Dash J's hand starts turning corrupted. They go all murpley, and Melanie develops some self-preservation and runs away. An alert goes over the intercom that every good homestead has, and announces that the Purple Corruption be purple corrupting. Everybody starts freaking out, and San jumps into the ceiling. Melanie finds our main characters and sends them to go get the MacGuffin, the cure, which is blue and near some places. They both dip, and Melanie gets murpled. The rest of the residents hold up in different rooms of the house. We see a masked person with the cure, which they then do something with. San has a gun! Gabriel is attacked. Their glasses turn red and they teleport. They end up hiding in a wardrobe. Our heroes are walking down empty streets, looking for the cure. They end up in a clearing, possibly in a park, and make camp for the night. Both of them are showing signs of infection, Story being noticeably more infected than Bunny. Story, in her infinite wisdom, says, "Hey, what if we tell each other our backstory?" The ensuing flashback proceeds to reveal that the two of them are childhood friends. Back at the house, San ain't doing so good, so she calls someone for help. A few seconds later, the kitchen door gets busted down by a group of new characters. Meanwhile, Gabriel gets tricked out of their hiding place by a recording of San's voice and gets murpled. Our heroes are sleeping at their camp, outside their tents, when Bunny wakes up and wanders off, following a strange compulsion. He walks into a school and finds a necklace in someone's office drawers. He proceeds to wear it. Back at the camp, he finds Story warming their book by the fire and shows off the necklace. Bunny is very blasé about it, including the fact he thinks its mysterious powers only work if he is the one wielding it. He reckons, for some reason, that it can cure the purple corruption. He is also right, as Story starts being overtaken by the Murple, and he cures her with the power of red glowing stuff. There is some discussion about the cure, and then a hurricane comes out of nowhere and blows Story away into some trees. She gets impaled and dies. Her horrified friend gets splattered with what I really hope is blood, and starts crying. Very understandable. Story then immediately appears as an angelic ghost, with no apparent distress with the fact she just died very horrifically. Bunny activates the necklace's power and teleports to the house, where he's promptly possessed by ghostly Story, who communicates with Bunny in his head, encouraging him. Bunny enters the house, finding everyone looking rather deceased. He continues and finds Dash J standing in a room with more deceased-looking people. Dash J teleports Bunny to the Grey Void, and they proceed to battle it out, Gacha character style. Bunny can now summon blades using the necklace's power. He shanks Dash J, and the Merple Man leaves their body, which Bunny also shanks. He then grows a red aura around himself, and it revives everyone, including Ghostly Story, who repossesses her now no longer dead physical body. An indeterminate amount of time later, we come back to our heroes. Story now has wings and a halo, despite no longer being dead and not having them when she was revived. The two of them are planning to return to where Bunny found the necklace to try and figure out why is the necklace. San ain't happy and warns them that they could be killed. Not quite sure why she thinks this, but they aren't exactly wrong. Story is kind of rude to San and they head off, retracing their steps with the help of Bunny's new necklace-given powers. At some point, Story's wings turn grey for a moment, and she officially begins her edgy character arc. They get to the camp Story died at in the last season, and go to sleep for the night, now inside their tents. Story wakes up in the middle of the night and finds Bunny mid-combat with a familiar masked person. Story joins the fight, letting Bunny get a stab in before both of them are teleported to the school. They do not question this. They continue, and Bunny finds and searches the desk he found the necklace in. Behind him, Story is getting murdered. Bunny tries to help, but Story teleports him away to safety, somehow, before presumably succumbing to her wounds. What is probably around a day later, we see San berating Bunny for his and Story's stupid decision-making, before something off-screen, later revealed to be knocking at the door, causes them to raise their weapons. Cut to Gabriel and our now unmasked figure, Shanna, looking very different and chilling in a definitely not earthly location, later revealed to be called the Dark Dimension. A portal opens behind them. Meanwhile, Story's dead body is chilling on a chair, while Dash J injects it with dragon blood. Back to Gabriel and co, they are being attacked from the portal by more people we know, who are now looking different as well. They are from the Fire Dimension. Candy Night gets murdered. Story wakes up, having healed from her injuries completely, and not being concerned enough about this whole scenario for my liking. Eris shows up, and Story goes feral, turning into a dragon and immediately throwing hands. After an epic battle and song monologue, Story leaves and returns to the house, where she knocks on the door, circling back around to San and Bunny being spooked by something at the door. Non-linear storytelling, people. You cannot say that the Purple Corruption isn't high art. Story begins narrating what happened after she fought Eris to Bunny, San, and Lovely, revealing that Gabriel was king of the Dark Dimension. He's dead now, and the rest of the Dark Dimension people are chilling in the dark void of eternal slumber. Except for Dash J, who just dipped, and Shanna, who got thrown into the actual void. No attempt is made to help her. I like to think that Story is still pissed about the whole getting murdered thing. Story asks them to help fight the Fire Dimension, and Bunny volunteers because he has crippling survivor's guilt and believes he has to atone for letting his friend die. San ain't impressed, but lets him go. Bunny goes to the Fire Dimension and proceeds to go on an epic rampage, set to appropriate music. Bunny shows up and starts fighting the Queen of the Fire Dimension, Peanut, and murderizes them, but not before they are able to get a fatal blow in. Story appears and grabs a now dying Bunny, holding him to her chest so that he can have a final sad montage of their childhoods together before he eats off the mortal coil. We cut to Story grieving, before locking in and teleporting away, to wherever Eris is to finish the job. She does just that after an epic fight scene, and Eris gets sword murdered. Meanwhile, San shows off her medical prowess by bringing Bunny back to life. Fandom shows up ready for some light murder, and San and Bunny try to fight them off. Story comes in with that flying tackle, letting Bunny get the final stab in. The gang decide to go camping, apparently not having learned anything, and things predictably go wrong. When Bunny is alone, an ominous figure shows up, and when the others return, they find said figure chilling at camp. No sign of their friend. San is maybe attacked, maybe passes out, and Story immediately tries to throw hands, but passes out, getting pulled into Bunny's mind, where he is trapped and unconscious inside. The figure takes on colour, and looks like an evil version of Bunny, with wings and a tail. Lovely and San hide, while not Bunny carries away Story's unconscious body. San and Lovely have spontaneous horses! They ride through the outskirts of the city and throughout the night, arriving at a spooky building with a fence around it. Breaking through said fence with a sword, they get inside the building somehow and get the jump on Not Bunny in a big, ornate, evil-looking throne room. His full legal name is apparently Insane PC Bunny, and he asks for help recapturing all of Bunny's escaped evil dark sides. He is controlling Bunny's actual body to try and catch them. He clarifies that he is still very much evil, he just needs a little bit of a hand. He then proceeds to do an evil laugh. San is not impressed. The evil dark sides that are on the loose are Hate PC Bunny, Fallen Angel PC Bunny, and Red PC Bunny. Insane stresses that he took Story to protect her, as Red was in the camp. Lovely and San discuss the trustworthiness of a guy whose first name is Insane, but they go out to catch Red. Meanwhile, Insane reminisces about the throne, gets attacked by an unidentified dark side, puts a mask on, and immediately decides to take it off again. Also, Lovely has a red and black claw for some reason. San uses Bunny's hat to lure Red into a trap and bonks him on the head with a frying pan. He wakes up tied to a chair and refuses to answer any questions until Insane pulls a fully automatic rifle out of nowhere, causing him to have a miraculous change of heart. Spills that the others are in the black void and gets sent back into Bunny's mind with another evil laugh. Next thing you know, they are fighting Fallen Angel, interspersed with flashes of lore. Reveals that Insane is always stuck in Bunny's mind, San ain't having a good time, and Lovely has this dude haunting him. They beat Fallen Angel, and he's sent back to Bunny's mind. Insane is back to chilling on the throne, before San and Lovely show up. Something weird happens with San's eye wound, and then their whole body. Hate shows up, causing problems, and runs away before they can catch him. Insane goes into the basement and pulls Story's body out of a closet, before returning her mind to her body. Story wakes up and immediately tries to fight Insane, but the two of them form a reluctant alliance after he promises to return Bunny if she helps catch Hate. Somewhere else, we see Melanie and a ghostly Angelica Gabriel looking mysterious, before cutting to Story and Lovely trying to help a probably dead San, now in another grey void. Meanwhile, Insane and Hate are stanced up. Melanie appears between them. A photo appears, showing Lovely, San, and Melanie, with Bunny and Story just visible in the background. The picture changes so that the words sacrificed appear over Melanie's eyes and dead over San's. The picture disappears, and Melanie gives her flower crown to Insane. Cuts to Insane and Story looking at San and Melanie's dead bodies. Insane attacks Hate and blows himself and Hate up with a ball of red. Bunny regains control of his body and is understandably shocked at the carnage around him. Story is relieved to have him back. He creates a portal back to their world, which Lovely promptly makes use of. Story tries to get him to come with her, but he decides he's caused too much pain, yells at Story, and throws her through the portal. Ghostly Gabriel kneels over Melanie's body, and then them and Bunny nod at each other, before Bunny creates a different portal and dips. Gabriel becomes a body removal service. Okay, so, now that we've gone over the various plots that are constantly fighting each other for dominance, we can have a look at the storytelling and presentation of the Purple Corruption and what stood out to me. For one, it's pretty clear that there wasn't really a big planned out story. It was more like season by season, the creator had an idea they thought would be cool and ran with it. Season 2 is particularly egregious, clearly heavily inspired by Rainimator. There's nothing wrong with this particular way of storytelling if done well, but because of this approach, the series falls into pretty much every pitfall that you can. The main one being very little story continuity, and of course, the wildly different plots with big tonal shifts and whiplash. Death clearly doesn't have much weight in the story, as people are dying and coming back willy-nilly. But death is still used for big emotional moments despite this. This ends up achieving the opposite effect than intended, often making the deaths funny or hold little meaning. The issue of using real people as characters is also a pretty big roadblock. You have little influence and control over the characters' designs and names, and making a character do something that the original creator doesn't like could result in problems down the line. Especially so when you're working within such a small, young community. The other main issue is the necklace. There isn't anything wrong with having a mysterious, power-granting artifact, but because it isn't explored, and it's just used to do what the story needs in the moment, the meaning and mystery just feels like a band-aid for plot holes. There isn't any explanation on why it can do what it can do, where it's from, and why it only works for Bunny. There is a story beat in the second season that has the characters trying to explore that, but that gets derailed and forgotten pretty quickly. However, each season is a jump in video quality and ability. More and more effort is put into each installment, and the love and earnest work of the creator oozes out of every episode. It was someone's first attempt at a gacha series, and you can see the fun they had while putting it together. The series has charm, something that isn't as pervasive as it should be in creative projects, and that's why I love it. Sure, would it be cool if the series was perfectly written and animated with the most up-to-date gacha video techniques? I guess, but would I love it as much if it was? No way. Because all those flaws that I listed in the first part of this section is why I love it so much. I was addicted to Rainimator's Minecraft animated series. I recognised the inspiration straight away and got super excited. I loved seeing my character interact with other characters of SCP Gachatubers I looked up to. And I was shocked when I died, and stoked when I was brought back. I loved every silly choice the characters made, every comedic, out-of-nowhere death. I was invested in the ever-changing, ever-turbulent relationship between Bunny and Story, even if it might have been portrayed amateurishly. At that point in time, my skill in gacha was a lot closer to that of Ender Shanna, and I still had my humble beginnings fresh in my mind. I know what it's like to be new at this whole thing, and want to create anyway. I enjoyed this series as it came out, and still enjoy it today, for very similar reasons. The pure chaos of the series ensures not one dull moment while watching, and that's more that I can say about some of my own series. This series means the world to me, flaws and all, and I think we can learn a lot from it. We can see what works and what doesn't, and why sometimes it doesn't matter if it works or not. Creative arts are for others to see and appreciate and criticize, but most importantly, they're for us, as the creators, to have fun. Don't be afraid to create something because you aren't sure you can do the idea justice. Don't be afraid to create something because you don't think you're good enough. The only way you can learn and improve is by doing, and doing without fear of mediocrity. Your project is first and foremost for you. And if you just so happen to make one random eyeless Gachatuber unreasonably obsessed with it in the process, well, that's up to you if that's a good thing or not. Now that we've survived the recap, it's time to try and figure out what happened in the series and why. For all the things that happened in the Purple Corruption, it is shockingly absent of context. This means it's almost impossible to put together the world's lore and rules. I am going to do it anyway, by means of a lot of conjecture and ignoring everything that contradicts my current theory. There are a lot of outward factors that impacted the presentation of the series. For instance, the limitations of Gacha Club and the inexperience of the creator. But for the sake of this video, I'm going to be ignoring it all in favour of looking at it in a vacuum. The setting of every story is an important part of it, and in some ways can be considered its own character. The world of the Purple Corruption does some heavy lifting in that area, especially in the first and second season, providing plot catalysts and keeping the watcher hooked after they come for the SCP Gachatubers on the thumbnail. After going over the series and its supplementary content with a fine-toothed comb, I believe I found a theory that ties all the strangeness together. The Purple Corruption takes place in a post-apocalyptic world. Throughout the series, there's a very small cast of characters. There are no outsiders, save for Season 1, Episode 4, where we're introduced to the people San calls for help. There are never any people outside when the characters are travelling to places on foot. Several times they walk through what could be a town or city, with no indication of life. The school that they return to multiple times seems to be abandoned. The only outside character that is not an SCP Gachatuber is an unnamed off-screen person, implied to be a sibling or parent, that talks to Story in a flashback when them and Bunny were children. The house that the characters live in, particularly in Season 1, is also kind of strange if you think about it. For one, it has a working intercom system that can reach pretty much every room inside it. The house is also very large, with a lot of rooms. There's a total of 6 people living there in a roommate situation. The house is large, even for 6 people. San is able to gain access to a gun in Season 1, and since they are not implied to be able to summon their own weapons, it must have been stored in the house, close at hand. She gets her hands on the gun in a kitchen. Unless it is common to store your guns in the fridge in this universe, it's more likely that there are similar weapons stored in every room of the house. This poses the question of why. What overlooming threat could necessitate this? The house also looks to be isolated from the city or town area, with a large section of grassy land around it. In fact, I wouldn't say it's a normal house at all, but a safe house, or base, used to survive in the aftermath of an apocalyptic scenario. It makes a lot more sense why all of the people in there are living together, rather than just all randomly being roommates. It would also explain why there are weapons stored close by at all times, so that everyone can easily arm themselves if the safe house is breached. I also think there is more than one safe house in the area. In Season 1, Episode 4, San calls backup from a friend, and very shortly after, Carolyn, Kamala, Candy Nat, Eris, Lovely, and Fandom join the cast by busting down the door, mostly all armed. The speed in which they respond to the distress call probably means that their own safe house is very close, if not a part of the compound connected to the main safe house. But since some characters are known to be able to teleport, it might be a little further away. It also means that they had weapons close at hand. Another notable thing is that the whole cast seems to be around the same age. Their ages are never specified, but their heights and sizes are all very similar, as well as their behaviours and decision making seeming to be pretty consistently bad across all characters. A catastrophic event taking place could result in mostly younger people being left over after it had run its course, due to them being in the best age range for health and fitness when everything was going down. Now, running with the theory that this world is a post-apocalyptic one, what was the apocalypse? You may see where this is going. The Purple Corruption, the main conflict for the first season, is a mysterious disease that everyone already seems to know about, that makes you extremely aggressive to anyone around you, and is incredibly infectious. We have a zombie apocalypse, my friends! The Purple Corruption itself behaves very strangely for a disease, fully infected individuals being able to fully infect others in seconds through prolonged physical contact, and being able to infect any nearby people in a large radius with a slower moving infection without being near them. It can also be distilled into an infectious liquid. The strangest part, however, is that it seems to create evil versions of the fully infected. In multiple instances, fully infected members are shown to keep their mental faculties and be capable of coming up with plans to trap and infect victims. They can talk, remember who they are, and are sadistic, but the interesting thing is that they don't seem to consider themselves as the infected person. In Season 1, Episode 2, J says, "And plus, I'm not XXX-J, I'm purple corrupted XXX-J." And in Season 1, Episode 7, where Bunny cures J, a purple figure exits their body. This indicates that maybe they're being controlled in some way while infected, or even possessed. At first I thought the disease was airborne, seeing as it can infect people without physical contact. But there is no way an airborne disease has that much reach so quickly, especially as the fully infected don't seem to cough or release spores or do anything physically to cause infection. It also seemed to infect everyone at roughly the same time, and all those infected with the slower variant started showing signs of infection at around the same time, though they did have different levels of infection. When the intercom goes off, announcing that J has been infected, it clearly knows what the corruption is, and depending on if there was a real person behind it or it was programmed, that could mean that it was specifically made to detect potential infections and warn the inhabitants of the safe house. So, knowing all that, how exactly does the infection process work if it doesn't rely on physical infection? My theory is that it isn't a scientific or medical infection at all, but psychic. Looking at the series world, even in Season 1, supernatural events do exist, so looking at the purple corruption under that lens actually provides a scenario in which this makes more sense. The infection goes through minds instead of bodies. In the series, it's shown that people can achieve different physical forms through some sort of mental exertion. The best example being Season 3, with Bunny's many, many dark sides that sprang from his head. It's not out of the realm of possibility, then, that the disease, once infecting a host, could start to force their bodies to change through just mental power. This makes the rapid infection through direct physical contact make more sense too, because if something had that much mental or psychic power was so close to you, it could theoretically speed up the infection process. Seeing it as a psychic attack on the mind, with the body just reflecting the mind's corruption, it also makes sense that some people are not as affected as others. Those who are more mentally sound will probably survive the infection longer. However, being infected would probably leave mental scarring, even if you were healed later on. This could be an explanation for the questionable actions and decisions made by characters in Season 2 and 3. It makes perfect sense that the world fell to a disease with such insane infection rates and violent symptoms. The only hole in this theory is the same thing that prompted this theory in the beginning. Where are the infected? My solution to that, with no evidence other than the infected don't seem to be dead, just controlled, is that they all died out due to hunger. An infection so fast it could rip through communities very quickly, leaving a lot of infected behind, would quickly disrupt global trade and manufacturing, as well as farming and transport. The infected hosts retain their intelligence, but they don't seem to be motivated by much else than sadism and infecting others. I can't see one picking up a garden shovel and planting some potatoes. Even if they started eating one another, that food source would run out pretty quickly. Interestingly, using clues featured in the series, mostly related to flashbacks, it is possible to work out an actual timeline for when the apocalypse started, and how old the characters might be. Now, the world of the Purple Corruption is most likely a completely separate universe from our own, but if we assume that it at least follows a similar timeline year-wise, then we can draw some interesting conclusions. In the first flashback to Story and Bunny's childhood, they seem video calling each other on smartphones. Smartphones started being used by younger people en masse around the early 2010s. Video conferencing on smartphones took off around this time with the release of FaceTime in 2010. It is kind of hard to tell what ages they may be, other than that they are young. Bunny says, "I just finished reading this book you sent me. indicating they can both read, and depending on what kind of book, decently. This could put them in the age range of 7 to 11 years old. Stories does seem to act older, or be presented as older than Bunny, so she could be a year or two older than him, but for the sake of simplicity, let's say they are both roughly 8 years old. In all the flashbacks to their childhood, both in the series and in supplementary material, there doesn't seem to be anything wrong with the world. As children, they are shown to be running around outside and playing, with no apparent threats, and in one video, debatable if it is canon, Bunny is shown to be in a hospital. As mentioned before in Season 1 Episode 3, there is shown to be an unnamed voice that calls out to Story during that flashback, being the first and only canon indication that there are other people around other than just the main cast. For those reasons, I feel comfortable saying that this flashback takes place before the apocalypse. That could mean that at least by 2010, when Story and Bunny were about 8 years old, the apocalypse has yet to start. Looking at the way the characters act in the series, seemingly nonsensical at times and with inconsistent emotional states, often not reacting much to tragic events or actively enjoying causing pain, it seems like they haven't grown up properly, or grew up affected by traumatic events that affected their mental states. Due to this, I would say that the apocalyptic events started happening shortly after 2010, when they were all still children, forcing them to grow up fast. It could also be a reason behind Story and Bunny's very close bond. Narrowing down the characters' current ages in the series is less of an exact science. Everyone seems to be grown up, taller and more adult looking, however they constantly make strange decisions. Because of the potential of them growing up in an apocalypse and how that could have affected them, it's hard to pinpoint an age range based on behaviour. The best I can come up with is late teens to early mid-20s, so they could be anywhere from 16 to 25 years old. Going for the median again, let's say all of our main cast is around the age of 19 to 21. That would make the current year somewhere between 2021 and 2023. This actually works out quite well, as the series' first episode was posted in 2021. Okay, so this one is a bit tricky, as there isn't really any in-world explanation for the necklace's existence, or how it works. Even the characters in the series are confused. It serves mainly as something to get the story moving, as much of a plot device as Story's repeated deaths are. It is effectively a deus ex machina, and it's hard to separate it from that, even in-universe. However, because I am so cool and awesome, I have a theory that can explain this. Bunny is very clearly the protagonist. He radiates protagonist energy. He gets given a mysterious artifact with no explanation that allows him to cure a world-ending infection and can even bring people to life, and it only works if he uses it. Let me introduce you to the concept of fate. Fate is defined as the development of events outside a person's control, regarded as predetermined by a supernatural power. Fate, or fates, are also often a concept of deities in folklore and mythology from multiple different cultures. So, I propose that there is a higher being in this world, probably incorporeal, could be the author themselves, that is ensuring the story is playing out as it is fated. However, to do this, it needs an avatar. Enter the necklace. A kind of manifestation of fate. It chooses Bunny, and allows him to use these powers to do what they need to do in the moment, in return for being able to use him to shape the narrative. My evidence for this theory? Absolutely nothing! As contrived as the idea is, I need some reason for what the necklace is, and the idea that it is the literal manifestation of fate making sure that stuff happens is kinda funny. However, even if we are dealing with fate, not everything goes according to plan, because Bunny is very much still a human. The only thing that could probably be used to cheat fate would be its own physical manifestation, after all. And there is quite a lot of cheating fate going on. Okay, so, Story dies multiple times, in some pretty funny and sudden ways. Others come back to life as well, but with the exception of one other person, she is unique. When Story dies, she gains an angelic form, unable to be seen by others, and feels an intense need to protect Bunny. She even has the ability to semi-possess him, which she uses to encourage and support him mentally when he is exposed to the dead bodies of his friends. There is one other character that shares similar traits to this, and also seems to be connected, or bound, to another person: Gabriel. After dying as the King of the Dark Dimension, they leave our radar, but show up at the end of Season 2 with a very similar angelic form by the side of Melanie, who had also disappeared from the series. They stay by her side until she dies, where they then take her body. I believe that they are both guardian angels. Have to make a quick note here, there is one person who has an angelic appearance, however doesn't fit the rest of the criteria: Carolyn. They can easily be seen by others, and their design changes to completely remove any angelic features later on, so I'm just gonna say they just look like that and move on. Grasping at straws here. Fated to die, a guardian angel rises in a ghostly state to be a support and protector of a person important to the world's story. They can't normally be seen by anyone unless they possess their charge, or enter an area with different reality rules, like the Grey Voids. Being fated to die could be behind Story's first death, via sudden, tiny, localized hurricane. Perhaps she needed to become a guardian angel in that moment to give Bunny the strength and motivation he needed to defeat J. You might think she could have done that perfectly fine while she was alive, but if she was by his side alive, she would have been a target. At this point in the series, she didn't have any abilities, and seemingly no combat ability. She would have been a sitting duck, and Bunny would probably have lost if he was trying to fight J and protect her at the same time. What probably wasn't fated was her being resurrected. After she gets revived, everything kind of goes wrong. Her wings start deteriorating and going grey, she refers to herself as fallen, she dies again, pretty soon after the first time, quite brutally, and gets dragged into a bunch of conflict from a whole other dimension. Fate probably didn't like her cheating her preordained death and mission as a guardian angel, even if it wasn't her fault, and scrambled to fix the issue with mixed results. Speaking of cheating fate, does death even mean anything in this series? People are dying left and right, and getting revived left and right. It's funny to joke about the plot actively trying to assassinate Story, but almost every character has died and revived at least once. And plenty have died twice. They just haven't come back. The first major die-off event was at the end of Season 1, where every single character not fully infected by the Purple Corruption was killed, except for Bunny. He used the necklace to revive everyone. The second major die-off event was in Season 2, where lots of the same characters died in the Dimension War. Every character who had died once previously doesn't return to the series. Bunny also died for the first time here, and came back. There's a weird pattern of people not returning after their second death. Out of all the double deaths, the only person to come back a second time is Story, and that was under weird circumstances that no one else has repeated. Whether the second revive was successful due to Guardian Angel messing around, necklace shenanigans, or entirely up to the pink dragon blood stuff, no one else has managed the same result. Bunny, at no time, tries to revive anyone a second time with the necklace's power. So, what if the necklace's power can grant anyone one free death? All of the revives, excluding Story, are connected to the necklace, either directly by Bunny using the power to revive someone, or indirectly with Bunny's own death while wearing the necklace. There doesn't seem to be any indication that people could come back from the dead prior to Bunny getting his hands on the necklace. The one revive that is separate from the necklace is Story's revival and transformation at the hands of the Dark Dimension. But even they don't seem to normally be able to bring people to life, as they lose soldiers in the war and don't make a move to try to revive them. Okay, so, the dimensions. Yeah, that whole story beat comes out of absolutely nowhere, and I love it for that. Doesn't help it make any more sense though. For clarity, I'm going to call the world that all the characters are originally from the main world, or the main. I propose that the dimensions, while real places, aren't nearly as big or stable as the main. They're kind of floating around in the void, trying to find something to cling onto, to siphon resources from. They have connected to the main and dug their claws in, slowly sending forward tendrils to collect energy and kidnap and convert new residents to process that energy. Of course, the main world might not have enough resources for 2 parasitic dimensions, so that could explain why the 2 worlds have beef. You probably noticed that the people from the dark and fire dimensions are all characters we have seen before in Season 1. They have slight physical changes, mainly pink eyes for those who belong to the dark dimension and orange eyes for those in the fire dimension. They act like they don't know each other, and have a full-on war, killing those who were previously their friends and allies. They show clear loyalty to the dimension they belong to, and a hatred for the other dimension. We also see someone from the main get taken and converted into a dark dimension resident, Story, with their second revive. They are killed, taken, and injected with a pink substance, apparently dragon's blood, which brings them back to life with significant changes, and while Story doesn't have actual eyes, it's safe to say that if she did, they would probably be pink. Story's situation is slightly different, as none of the other Dark Dimension residents have dragon or animal parts, apart from what they might have had previously, and it is hinted that her conversion was special. I don't think that the rest of the Dark Dimension or Fire Dimension residents had to die to convert, though it isn't out of the question. However, if you watch the episode in which Bunny and Story are attacked, it actually looks like Bunny was the intended target. He is singled out and attacked before they get to the school, and when Story is stabbed, she teleports Bunny away to safety. If Bunny was the target, it wouldn't have mattered if they killed whoever was with him. However, after failing to capture Bunny, Shanna took Story back as opposed to returning completely empty-handed, and the resulting dragon revival was more of an experiment than an actual real attempt to convert her. Conversion looks like it interferes with the person's memory to a degree, or at least to the way that they think. They also have their loyalties and preferences changed when necessary to ensure that the most important thing to them is their dimension. We see this change in Story, as she acts extremely aggressive to Eris, a Fire Dimension resident, as soon as she sees her, despite the fact that she should recognise her as a friend. After she returns to her friends, she asks for their help to defeat the Fire Dimension. This is in spite of the fact the Dark Dimension is responsible for her death, and honestly kind of body horror-ish revival. She even lets her best friend, someone who she is shown to consistently show the most care and worry for, go and fight the Fire Dimension head-on by himself. The Dimension's slow takeover, or at least that of the Dark Dimension, is more of a long con than you might think. At the start of the series, in Season 1, the purple corruption is unleashed on the characters by a mysterious masked figure, who removes the cure from the equation and presumably is responsible for placing the bottle of infection in Dash-J's hand. Our masked figure, the same one who kills and kidnaps Story, is revealed to be Shanna, someone who serves the Dark Dimension. It is confirmed by the creator that PC Shanna is responsible for the outbreak at the safe house. The Dark Dimension is responsible for kicking off the events of Season 1, causing chaos and bloodshed. Whether the intent was to weaken and scatter the group for easier pickings, or to cause deaths to make conversion easier, isn't clear. The Darkside's plotline comes out of nowhere, as do all of the plotlines, but this one is both easier to explain and more complicated at the same time. This section has been split into 2 parts, so Insane PC Bunny will have his own section. In this part, I'm referring specifically to Hate, Fallen Angel, and Red. Bunny has been through a lot throughout the course of the series. Even disregarding the theory of him growing up through an apocalypse as a child, he's been through more than enough for a lifetime, in what can't have been more than a year. His behaviour only becomes more erratic as the series goes on, until it explodes in the start of Season 3, with literal destructive versions of himself attacking those around him. The whole of Season 3 can be seen as a literal exploration into the way Bunny is dealing with the trauma of the previous seasons. He is scared and dealing with intense guilt and quite possibly PTSD, due possibly to necklace shenanigans or Insane's presence. All of his turmoil has formed into physical manifestations. Hate probably represents hatred, both Bunny's own self-hatred for failing his friends, and hate for them relying on him and not being able to save him when he is in need. This results in hate targeting Bunny's friends and Bunny's body. It is clearly the main manifestation, as well as the most powerful, so it is not a stretch to assume that it was one of the first to form, and that maybe the others formed from it. Fallen Angel may represent guilt and the fear of falling short of expectations. It is the dark side with the least amount of screen time, thus the least amount of visible personality, but when Insane and Fallen Angel fight, it offers mercy, or at least loses interest in the fight once Insane can't continue. It is the least aggressive of all the dark sides, and doesn't seem to all that interested in causing problems. If the others hadn't hunted it down to catch it, I don't think it would have tried to interact with them at all. If it does represent guilt and the fear of falling short, it makes sense that it would want to avoid those it feels it has failed. Red is the hardest to pin down. The colour red is commonly associated with warmth and passion, as well as aggression, violence and power. Combining these ideas, along with the knowledge that Red was perfectly happy, even eager, to attack when he heard someone nearby, we could say that it represents Bunny's own growing bloodlust. His journey through the series shows him going from a cheery guy who wants to help his friends to someone who actively tried to commit genocide on the Fire Dimension. Through every fight he participates in, he becomes more and more eager to fight, and often expresses either indifference or glee when he kills someone. All these things could be issues he would be dealing with in the aftermath of Season 1 and 2, among many others. Season 3 is a literal representation of Bunny going through a breakdown and mental episode. At the end of the season, he is horrified by what he has done, and decides to isolate himself for fear of hurting them further, pushing them away literally by throwing Story through a portal and leaving through a portal of his own. While he has confronted his main issues, he is left devastated at the carnage in his wake. Yet another fresh helping of trauma dumped all over him. Only this time, it's truly his own fault. Okay, so, if the dark sides are all physical manifestations of Bunny's trauma, then why is Insane not grouped with them? After all, his name makes it pretty easy to tell what he's supposed to represent. Well, it's because I don't think he's a true dark side, or at least not one of the others mentioned here. For this theory, I'm going to be heavily referencing a piece of supplementary material that concretely places itself into the series canon. While I do recommend you go check out the video for yourself, the basic rundown is that it shows some of Insane's backstory, mainly his relationship with an insane version of Story. He was raised by her as a child in what looks like a hellscape, and she begins mistreating him, resulting in them being at odds as adults. The last shot has them both interacting with their purple corruption counterparts, indicating they may be involved in the story from here on. My first thought was, oh, alternate universe versions. We have the multiverse coming in the next season. But no. Both Insane and his version of Story seem to have vastly different ages and relations to each other, and their world seems remarkably similar to a previous dimension that we have encountered before, the Fire Dimension. While it is not exactly confirmed, I think that Insane's Story is a creature from the Fire Dimension, or at least a similar fiery dimension. Her colour scheme and design is consistent with those from the Fire Dimension. We see very little of the Fire Dimension and its denizens, so it's not out of the realm of possibility for other creatures, even more eldritch or alien beings, to exist there. And Ashana has stated that Insane Bunny was not born in Insane Story's dimension, so this could mean that there are even more dimensions we've yet to see. Because they look like our Story and Bunny, you might think that they were formed in their image, but as the Insane counterparts seem a lot more eldritch and probably older, that our main characters were born in their image. it's shown in the series that Insane is, ironically, the most sane and reasonable of all the dark sides, wanting to recontain them, protect Bunny, and he even goes out of his way to specifically protect Story. He thinks the most for himself, and has his own motives. Another thing that puzzled me before the video was that Insane repeatedly refers to a throne, the throne in the dilapidated building, as being his, and that he is glad to be back on it. That is indicating that he has a past, both longer than he could have had if he was just Bunny's trauma, and separate from Bunny entirely. With the added context of the video revealing that he has indeed been living his own life, I think that I can come to a conclusion as to why this Eldritch Bunny lookalike is stuck in Bunny's head. I think he has been put there, sealed away into the living prison of Bunny's mind. Insane Story is shown to be evil, or at least at extreme odds with Insane, especially when he is an adult. The two of them are clearly clashing. I don't think it would be out of the realm of possibility that Insane Story, getting fed up with fighting Insane and growing more and more insane with time, defeated him and sealed him away, descending to the main world to find a suitable living prison, who ends up being our protagonist. I'm not quite convinced that most of my headcanons make sense, but now we're on to the fun bit. The headcanons. I've amassed quite a lot through this project, and it's made my enjoyment of the characters all the more pronounced. Some are just running with little details, others are completely made up just because I think they would be cool, but it's all pretty fun. This section is broken up into a few parts for more cohesion. I have a bunch of headcanons for the titular protagonist and his bestie, and not nearly enough for most of the other characters to have dedicated sections. So we've got an in general section as well, which is basically just things that headcanons that are more group related. With the general, is it just me, or does everybody have their own brand of mental illness? The way all the characters are acting is pretty far from rational, and seeing what they've gone through, both in the series and presumably as children living through an apocalypse, I think it's pretty safe to say that it's not really surprising. I really hope that a licensed therapist or two survive the apocalypse, because these guys desperately need one. Here we have San. San is probably the therapist friend, because I mean, look at that face. She's absolutely overworked with anything and everything, and is pretty clearly the leader of this whole operation. They look like they are so tired, but trying to keep everything together. That's the kind of person who ends up as a therapist friend. A good listener who is trying to keep the whole group running. This person is hanging on to sanity by a thread with their teeth. And I don't think any dentists survive the apocalypse. Also, I think San is completely blind in her damaged eye. It could even have been injured in the first place during the apocalypse, as they start the series with the injury. Shanna is in here, but she technically has her own section because, as you can see, I've not been completely, completely organized and messed some stuff up. Another thing, completely forgot, that is supposed to be spelled Melanie. Not Melody, Melanie. Mandela affected on that as well. I have been reading it as Melody ever since I first came across the channel several years ago. Only found out during research. It's Melanie, not Melody. So, yeah, ignore that problem. This is very thought out. I didn't make any mistakes. Shanna doesn't really appear again after being thrown into the void in season 2. I reckon she's still stuck there, probably very bored and probably going insane. It could actually be a cool setup for her to come back twice as powerful as a more hands-on villain. Maybe she's biding her time, waiting for an opportunity to escape and wreak havoc. Melanie just kind of disappears after season 1, and while there is evidence that she was around sometime after season 2 but before season 3, her location is mostly just unknown. She also shows up at the end of season 3 with Gabriel as her guardian angel for a dramatic last stand. I think she was probably off somewhere doing protagonist stuff with Gabriel. Melanie is another fate-chosen protagonist who got her own guardian angel, like Bunny, and is off making sure another storyline was happening. The whole showing up at the end for a dramatic death and touching Insane's heart with her sacrifice was the fated end of her protagonist journey, and she was supposed to go there to give Insane the emotional power to defeat hate. Alright, we have our protagonist, Bunny. I love this guy. He's a silly, goofy little man filled with trauma who likes to wear flower crowns. He also probably almost definitely has PTSD from all the stuff he's been through. He's been infected with the purple corruption, watched his best friend die twice while he stood helpless, discovered all of his friends' dead bodies, had to fight one of them while they were infected with the purple corruption, fought his way through a dimension of fire and lava, died, was brought back to life, got so overwhelmed by mental anguish that he manifested evil versions of himself, and one of those evil versions killed two of his friends. I would be more surprised if he didn't have PTSD. Also, have you noticed the strange thing Bunny always wears on his leg, and the thing he often wears on his arm? I did research for this headcanon, and it's one of my favourites, and I will cry if it's not canon. Bunny has osteoarthritis in his right arm due to a combination of joint injury and genetic abnormalities with the wrist and elbow joints there. So, he wears a full arm brace to manage the pain and keep mobility. He's also missing his left leg, which probably happened pretty young, when the apocalypse had started, but before infrastructure like hospitals stopped working. Maybe he was injured so badly in an attack by the purple corrupted infected that it had to be amputated? Or it could be because of an unrelated illness or injury. Depression. Depression and body dysmorphia. Need I say more? Does being suddenly part dragon and knowing your brain and body have been changed forever but being unable to do anything about it look fun? How does she get a shirt on? Where does the tail go when she puts on a pair of pants? The wings! That would majorly mess with your perception of your body and sense of self. Because of the whole being revived and converted into an evil parasitic dimensions army foot soldier thing, I think she also came back wrong. Her brain, as I just mentioned, is wrong, changed without her consent just as much as her body. She's withdrawn, moody, quick to violence, and doesn't seem to be able to care about anyone other than Bunny. But she would still remember how she used to be and how she used to feel. She would remember what used to be important to her and how she used to want to protect her friends. She can no longer achieve that, and you can imagine how distressing that would be, both to herself and to those around her. I also reckon they go by they-them pronouns because this is the headcanon section and I can do what I want. Another interesting idea that I will die by is that Story is still infected by the purple corruption. Since the purple corruption is a psychic disease, I believe that when it was cured by Bunny, it hadn't fully exited their system before they died the first time, resulting in the corruption being locked into their head. It grows very, very slowly, and was reactivated by the second death revival. It's mostly held back by the dragon side of them, but any injury Story gains will heal back with infected flesh. This means they are not only dealing with the changes to their brain, but a growing sadistic side, courtesy of the purple Merple. Also, here's a headcanon that is really silly and, it literally gets disproved in season 2, but I can't let it go because I really like it so much. Story can't cry. I mean, look, they don't have physical eyes. Therefore, they don't have physical tear ducts. It's funny, silly, and also opens up opportunities for angst, as they would be the only character who can't express their grief like the others. And now, here we are, getting ready to wrap up this unreasonably long, in-depth video essay on a subject that only I really care about. I really enjoyed doing this. Going back over the series over and over again has really given me a new appreciation for it, and it opened my eyes up to its importance in our little space. The landscape changes very quickly on YouTube, and I don't want this series to be buried, especially so when the creator is bringing out a season 4. I highly advise you to go check out her channel and subscribe, so you won't miss experiencing Season 4 as it is coming out. I'm really excited for Season 4, as this season's premise is just as bonkers and out of nowhere as the previous seasons. You have the privilege of being able to witness a new series in real time, and I think that's really special. Besides, if you are a currently active SCP Gachatuber and you want to be a part of history, go check out the Season 4 trailer and put your OC code in the description, and you can have a chance to join as a new character. I don't plan on doing a follow-up video when the season is finished, but if you guys enjoy this and want to laugh at me, as no doubt all my theories get flushed down the drain, give me a heads up. I might just do a part 2. This series has been all I can think about for months. Thanks, autism. All the rewatching and theorizing was really fun, even when it did my head in. The script writing and recording has been less fun, but you know, fun enough. It's been really interesting to experiment with yet another new style of video, and I've learned stuff I can apply in future works, so hopefully I can deliver better content in the future. This project was a really interesting ride. I decided to make this video after making a joke about how hard it would be to do, and then getting inspired. I started work at the very end of December last year, and have been working over the past few months on this project. I wanted to give a massive thank you to Ender Shanna for making this series, and to all the people who helped me with the project. A big thank you to Ali, who was my biggest supporter and helped me with research, ideas, brainstorming, and editing. He was always there to listen or read my ramblings, and throughout the whole process made me feel seen and kept me engaged. Thank you to my little sister Dr. Bubby, who helped me massively with editing the intro script and was the humour consultant for this project. Also a prop at one point. Thank you to my dad, who helped me sort out the recording equipment, and my mum, who tolerated my constant complaining about the script writing and let me use her printer. Thank you to Mortis10 for composing the soundtrack of this video. Thank you to my friends, who helped keep me sane throughout all of this, and, much like the Purple Corruption, make sure I never see a dull moment. You guys all mean the world to me, and I really appreciate your help and support that you've given me. Alrighty, we're just gonna have the credits, and then after that, it will be back to your unregularly scheduled programming. Stick around to the end for a fun little surprise. Thanks for waiting around. I really appreciate it. I honestly wouldn't have, because I have an attention span worse than a goldfish. So it's nice that, you know, people are still more functional than I am on a daily basis. Now for the fun surprise! Now you're infected too.